Hey everybody, it's Tess from the Curiosity Project. You may have noticed there's been no new episodes for a little bit. That is because still fighting with audio issues and still celebrating Christmas here. I hope your holiday season was good, and this episode of the Curiosity Project is with the wonderful Jay Gray. This is another situation where my background audio was absolutely brutal, but Jay Gray's audio is absolutely perfect, and I think you'll really enjoy this episode. It's really sweet and warming and endearing. Things will be back to normal, I think, with the next episode or the episode after that, but I'll keep you updated with these little messages up the top of each episode that there is problems with. And I am sorry again for the delay, but we'll keep going. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jay Gray. I am, among many other things, the media ambassador for R. Talsorian Games, the makers of Cyberpunk Red and The Witcher tabletop RPG and Castle Falkenstein, and several other tabletop role-playing games.
What are the three things you value most in life?
Oh gosh, I'm on a life path, which is this, because in Cyberpunk, and that's one of the things is you can choose. You go through a life path to determine your character's background, and one of them is who you value most, what you value most, and then what physical object you value most. Gosh, what do I value most? See, that's one of those things where my most categories always change depending on when you ask me. So right now, I'd say I value creativity always. It's very good to have, very good to see in other people. I value connections with people, my family, my friends. Connections. I don't need a lot of connections, but a few connections are always good. And I value, I value my ability to reason. I'll be honest. The concept of losing that is pretty darn scary to me. So, my ability to reason is something I really do value. If I, stop and do a little soul searching and really think about what I'm afraid of and therefore what I value because I'm afraid of something. But I mean, you can adjust for everything else, though, can't you? You can adjust if you lose your vision. You can. We have developed ways to interact with the world and learn and do things without your vision or your hearing, or even without your arms or your hands. But once your ability to reason goes, that's it.
Tell me a memory which shaped you.
Oof. A memory which shaped me. Well, I could talk about the birth of my children, which was both traumatic and wonderful at the same time. That is certainly true. There's so many memories, and aren't we the sum total of all our experiences? But now I gotta think of something specific. I would say, I would not be here where I am today if I had not walked into a comic book store in my little town and seen on the shelf a yellow box put out by TSR way back in the day called Marvel Superheroes Role-Playing Game Basic Set. And without that, I would not be a gamer, and who knows how my life would have evolved if that hadn't been. So that's a good memory that shaped a lot of stuff that followed. Yeah, it was put out in the 80s by TSR back when there was a TSR. They created Dungeons and Dragons, which they are eventually bought out by Wizards of the Coast, and who puts D&D out today. But they also put out a bunch of other games, and they had the Marvel license, and so they created a role-playing game based off the Marvel superheroes at the time, the comic books, Spider-Man and the X-Men and Fantastic Four and so forth. And they did it in sets. So you had a basic set and an advanced set. And the basic set was, the simple rules, and the advanced set was more advanced rules, more crunchy, more rule sets. And they were black and white except for the covers on the inside, but they did have art from the comic, which was really cool. And it was designed by a man named Jeff Grubb, who was one of the great designers of all time. And the great thing about it was, and I didn't play it. I've actually only played it a couple of times, and I didn't get to play it when I bought it, but it had this beautiful random way to make superheroes or supervillains, if you prefer. And I enjoyed that. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours just making these characters, rolling my 2d10 and coming up with, are they a mutant? Were they changed by cosmic radiation? Did they build their suits like Iron Man? And then what are they? And then taking the random parts and putting them together into a story that makes sense. What is this character's backstory? What is this character's origin? And I would write them up like, because at the time they were also publishing the new Marvel handbooks, which were every character got 1 or 2 pages where they have a listing of their background and their powers and some vital statistics. And I would do it in that fashion. So it was a lot of fun.
Or what's your favorite color?
Green. It's the color that looks best on me.
Tell me in as much detail as you can about something you knew of which once existed.
Okay. So we had the internet now. And before we had the internet, we still do. We had the telephone. And before that, we had the telegram. And before the telegram, we had the optical telegram. Obviously, this is long before I was born, but the first thing to be called a telegram was invented in France. And it was, you would build a tower on a hilltop, and that tower would have arms. And the position of the arms would determine the letters being said. And then there would be another tower on another hill a few miles away, and someone watching constantly that one tower, and they would see the message, write it down, and then move their tower, and so forth down a chain. And Napoleon ordered a whole bunch of these. And in fact, France was really stubborn because the system worked so well that they didn't move to an electric telegraph for much longer than most other countries in Europe. Because, you could probably still find a telegraph somewhere, but you cannot find an optical telegraph unless there's a museum piece somewhere.
What, if anything, is perfect?
Nothing's perfect. But isn't that perfect in its own sort of way? That nothing is perfect, and it's perfect that nothing is perfect? Because if everything was perfect, it would be boring or unobtainable or unmutable, because if something's perfect, it can't change. So I'm going to say imperfection is perfect. And it's a weird philosophical answer, but I'm sticking with it.
Who is your favorite character from fiction of any kind?
Oh, gosh. See, goes back to that thing. Because I tend to be more of a, who's my favorite character? But because there are so many great characters, and I've read so many books and seen so many movies and played so many games, and it feels weird to pick one that's a favorite. I think Sherlock Holmes is a great character because Sherlock Holmes has these stories, and in these stories he is one way, but we've reinterpreted him so many times as time has gone on that every time you see Sherlock Holmes, he's a different Sherlock Holmes, and yet the same Sherlock Holmes. And the same is true of comic book characters, Spider-Man and Batman too. So I think I like the idea of it. The characters can be reinterpreted through different lenses and still be the same character at the same time. So the answer is I don't know that I could pick a favorite, but I can pick kind of the archetype of the character that's either in a shared universe or a public domain. And so that character can change and still be the same. And so you can get new insight through that character while still keeping this core that makes a character appealing.
What fascinates you?
A well-told story. Okay, that's not entirely true because it's not always well-told stories. Characters that I can connect with, no matter how well-told the story is, elevate a story into a well-told story, and that will fascinate me. And I can't say I'll always connect with this kind of character, but when I do connect, it could be a video game with horrible game mechanics, and I will suffer through it because I want to know that character's story. It could be a story that's not the best written, but I will read through it because I want to know what happens to that character. So characters that vibe for me fascinate me. Well, it's interesting. I just finished playing Watch Dogs Legion, which the concept of the game is there is no central character really. You recruit a team of up to 40-something individual characters, and the characters themselves are relatively shallow. Here's an appearance, here's their voice, here are a set of traits, here's what they do for a living. And so you'll have characters who sound more or less alike because they're played by the same voice actor and they get the same voice lines. But I found in playing certain characters were more interesting because maybe their voice actor said the lines in a way that I was more intrigued by. And so I would send, somehow or another, I got 3 relatively elderly women on the team. One was a stage magician, one was a drone operator, and one was a retired hitman. And they each had their own unique things, and they were each truthfully voiced by the same person. But I would switch back and forth between them because of all the characters I had, and I had 40 something characters. Their voice actor and the lines they gave were the most intriguing to me, and they told the biggest story.
What piece of media should everyone consume?
Oh, I don't know that there's any piece of media that everyone can consume. Okay, I'll change that. I think everyone should consume the news. Everyone should be informed, especially if they're participating in a democracy. I think that's super important. And that's almost as much a duty as it is a thing. But beyond that, I wouldn't say that there's any reason why anyone has to watch a television show or play a video game or read a book if that's not their thing. Everyone can find their own way to enjoy life, and it should really be an individual choice.
If you could name a hot sauce, what would you call it and why?
I don't use hot sauce much. I like just a little bit of spice, and I would want to call it something incredibly clever, and my brain is blanking on that. So I'm going to say the hot sauce that I couldn't think of a clever name for is what I would call it, and then because I couldn't think of a clever name for it.
And how hot would it be?
For me, it would probably be what most people would consider mild hot. It wouldn't be too hot. I like hot to add to the taste, not to be the sensation.
What is your most prized physical possession?
Oh, my most prized physical possession. I'm just kind of digging through. I mean, there's my role-playing game collection, which I absolutely love and spent years and much money curating. But you know, it's going to be pretty basic. My most prized physical possession is my house, because isn't it nice to be inside when it's raining and cold out, and to have shelter and to have a place to store my stuff? And so on a very, very practical level, I would say that is my most prized physical possession, which is not to say that I will not someday get another house. This particular house is nice, but it's not something that, you know, I'm super attached to. But I enjoy having a place for my stuff and for me and for my family.
So it's more the concept of a house more than this specific house.
Yeah. You know, they say money can't buy you happiness, but you know what it can buy? It can buy you a lot of stuff that gives you time and safety so you can be happy.
What inspires you?
It's a dual-edged sword. People who are really good at what they do both inspire me and terrify me at the same time, or I should say inspire and depress me at the same time, because I look at them and say, oh my God, they're so good and I will never be that good. And at the same time, it's like, oh, well, they're really good. I want to be that good. And so it's that double-edged creator sword, you know, where you get the desire to push yourself along with the imposter syndrome. So just really well done, whatever it is, inspires me, especially if that's a really well done something I can do. Role-playing games come up most often because there's something I can actually do. I professionally help make role-playing games, but you know, I will see someone. I also professionally handle social media, and I'll see someone do something on social media and just handle it just like a ballerina, just gracefully dancing across it, and I'll be impressed and I'll be inspired by that to up my game. So yeah, just something that's really well done. That is something that I could do too.
Did you ever have an epiphany? If so, what was it about?
You know, I can't say I really ever have. I think I'm much more an process kind of person where I fix and fix and fix and fix until I get to where I'm going. I don't know that I am a out of the blue kind of person. Or if I am, I can't remember it. And if I really think back about it, if I ever have any epiphanies, they're really, if I were to pay attention to them, built on multiple changes that led to it.
What is the silliest thing you want to own?
Silliest thing I want to own. Okay, so see this can?
Yeah.
This can is an energy drink. I do not drink energy drinks. I will never open this can, but this can is a tie-in to Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, which is based off the tabletop role-playing game that my company publishes. And so I spent weeks going to different stores looking for that can and all of its friends. And that is absolutely silly to have something that I will never consume, I'll never use for its intended purpose, that I had no direct part in, really, making or influencing, and yet because it's got a tentative connection to something I do, I went out of my way to find it. So that's pretty silly to me.
If you could say your work had a theme, what would that theme be?
Can Jay do something? If my work has a theme, I've worked on a lot of different things over the years, and sometimes they're in role-playing games, they're very mechanical. There's like just rules for something, and a lot of times they're backgrounds. Though I will say, if there is an overarching concept to them, I don't know if it's so much a theme. It's that even when I'm just making rules, I feel like I'm telling a story, and if I can't make rules either to tell a direct story directly or to help tell a story, then there's no real point to it. So even engineeringly speaking, I feel like my work is a storytelling theme.
What is the most valuable thing you have ever learned?
There is so many valuable things. What's the most valuable thing I've ever learned? I think thinking about this, really thinking about this, I think the most valuable thing I've ever learned is that it's okay to stop, if that makes sense. It's okay to say, okay, this is never going to be perfect, but it's okay to share. And that it's okay if it's not perfect. And if someone notices it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. And it is not saying that I'm a horrible person who's done a horrible job.
So the kind of the limits of creativity, like in order to get then this 1% perfect thing, like I'm at 99. If I want to get the 1%, I would have to put in a ridiculous amount of time and a ridiculous amount of energy and a ridiculous amount of power into just trying to do a thing that doesn't really matter, that most people will never get to, most people will notice.
And you may never get to it even if you put that time in, because very few things come. We talked about this earlier. There's nothing that's perfect. So that's something I've learned, is that it's okay to stop and it's okay to share, even when you are. It's okay to know the difference between perfect and done.
I love the way you phrase that. How do you feel about death?
It's a weird, fluctuating thing. I'm not scared of the concept. At the same time, it's not, obviously it's not something I'm fascinated with or look forward to. It is. And it could be that I haven't been forced to confront it as much as a lot of people. And so I haven't developed a strong opinion of it either way. But it's there. And, it's not going away. And I don't even try, just I don't think about it much. Unless you mean the character from the Sandman, and that is a great character.
What makes you smile?
A lot of things make me smile. Anything I find amusing tends to make me smile. Taking pictures does not make me smile. I have a horrible, horrible, horrible fake smile, and I'm very bad at it. I hate it. But yeah, just being amused by something, enjoying something, and that will make me smile. It's really simple.
What is beautiful?
That's such a nebulous word, isn't it? There are things that are surfacely beautiful. I can look at a painting and it is beautiful. Many works creation are beautiful. Many books are beautiful. Many comic books are beautiful in different ways. But I would have a really hard time saying, X is or Y is. I think beautiful is a gut instinct, and you either know it is or it's not. And I don't know that it's easily defined, and it's one of those things that changes, and two different things can be beautiful for completely different reasons. And it may be that a synonym may fit the concept better, but it's still beautiful. A car can be beautiful, especially like a really nice old-fashioned 1950s kind of car with all the curves and the lines and the unnecessary lack of aerodynamics can be beautiful. And just breathing quietly after a very long day can be a beautiful thing. And they're all beautiful for different reasons. So just, I guess, because it's something that gives you joy in some way is beautiful.
Would you describe yourself as cute and cuddly?
Oh gosh, no, I'm all angles. I am all angles. I am tall and relatively thin and lanky. So no, I probably would not.
Tell me about something you learned recently that amused you.
Something I learned recently that amused me. Let me think for a second about things I learned recently. Okay, so I work for our Telltale Games. We're putting out Cyberpunk. the video game 2077 is based on our game, which means a lot of the lore information, because it happens in the same world as a concurrent timeline. So today I was asked a question about something, a piece of lore. Their social media team wanted to do something. They reached out to me. They said, "Can you find out about this?" And I said, "Sure." And then I went to my boss, Mike Pondsmith, and I asked him a question, and it was very amusing because he had to stop and think, and we had to step, okay, well, because they were looking for a date, and we had to say, okay, well, if X happened here and Y happened here, then this was, and it was not amusing in a, aha, this is funny sort of way, but it was amusing in a, all because someone asked me a relatively simple question to do a relatively simple thing. We had to go through this, 20-minute process of math and dissecting dates in a world that doesn't actually exist, a fictional world, to figure out, to do this thing, which is this information, which is going to be vaguely important to thousands of people. It was that's amusing. That it's beautiful at the same time, but it's also amusing.
Where do you feel safest?
I don't generally feel unsafe anywhere, which is an advantage, and I realize a privilege I have that a lot of people don't. And I try not to take that for granted. But in general, I feel safest, I would say, in spaces that feel like they're mine, which is, I suppose, true of most people in general. If I'm either in a space where like my office or my bedroom, where I know I am, or, I know I'm safe there, or even if I'm in a place like at a convention, surrounded by people I know I can trust for the most part, in my crew, like for the company, I feel pretty safe there. And I'm not going to feel safe, walking down a street late at night, partially because you never know what's going to happen, and partially because I've watched too many alien astronaut movies where the aliens are going to come down, or spooky movies where the thing comes out of the woods, and so my mind goes into overdrive. But yeah, I don't feel particularly unsafe anywhere, and like I said, I'm aware that I have that advantage and a lot of people don't.
If you were on a starship, what position would you hold?
See, I'm being pedantic now and saying, what universe is the starship in? Because and what kind of starship is it? Because there's only 2 people aboard the Millennium Falcon, and there's only 2 positions. We're on the Enterprise. There's thousands and thousands of positions. I suspect I would end up on the Enterprise, and it would be some kind of a Starfleet vessel, and it would be some kind of relatively minor position where I'll show up for one episode for a little bit because my extremely obscure department matters for the plot of that episode, and then I would never be seen again. So probably something along those lines. I don't suspect there's a lot of call. Maybe for role-playing game creators in a starship, but maybe they need someone to handle the inter-ship communication media, the ship bulletin boards and so forth, because something as large as the Enterprise, surely it has social media of some kind, right? A place to say, I'm going to be holding. Would anybody like to form a band? Because apparently everyone on the Enterprise plays an instrument, and where the poker game is going to be that night, or just have a conversation. Did you see what happened in astral navigation last week? So there would be some kind of I wouldn't be surprised if some of the, not the main shows, but the auxiliary media like the books or the source books have touched on this kind of thing.
Do you think there is more good than bad in the world?
I do. Sometimes it's hard to, but I honestly do. I think there are a lot of people who act out of fear or hate or horrible things. But at the same time, I think even those people usually have moments where they do good things, or they love, or they are loved. So I think there is. I don't think there's enough good in the world, but I like to think there is more good than evil in the world.
If you could give just one piece of advice, what would that be? You
are going to fail at things. And there's a good chance you're going to fail at things a lot. And failing at something is not the end of the line, even for that something. I am in my 40s, and it took me a very long time and a lot of false starts and a lot of bad jobs. Not bad jobs necessarily, but not jobs I wanted specifically, to get to where I am today. And so, yeah, you will fail, and it's going to be horrible, and it's going to feel terrible. But that is not a reason specifically to give up. If there's something you want, keep going, or keep going anyway, and you may find that you find something new that you want. It's never too late to do something cool in your life.